Hey, how are you? I actually have a lot of notes for today because I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you 10 examples of how ambivalence versus overwhelm. And ambivalence is really around apathy, and that's a very different solve than just overwhelm. And I think people confuse them a lot, especially in prosperity mindset. So when I think about ambivalence, number one, right, it's ambivalence is having mixed feelings or uncertainty about a goal, or that they have conflicting emotions and thoughts. Okay, so that's ambivalence. Whereas overwhelm would be feeling intense, an excessive amount of stress or pressure in relationship to a goal. So, as we're goal setting in your prosperity mindset, a lot of times you're going to meet these two players, and these two players look alike, they feel alike, but you're going to handle them differently. And the number one item is, right, this mixed feelings versus feeling an intense pressure that is an obstacle. So, number two, I would think about that in that you're wavering between choices or options when it comes to pursuing that goal. I don't know which way to go. Different from overwhelm, where we really see that we're paralyzed, that we just can't make progress, or that it's just the sheer magnitude, right? And a lot of times we shut down on it. Whereas ambivalence around a goal would be maybe I don't have clarity, maybe I don't have direction, not really sure what I want to achieve. Overwhelm would feel like being buried under like a never ending list of tasks. And that just feels different, right? So I'm not sure about clarity of direction versus I'm not sure of this other one. So number four is different, is apathetic. I'm scrolling through my notes. This is new. So you get my notes this time. So number four, right, is feeling really indifferent about your goals. Sometimes you just don't know, like, I don't know, is that my goal? Is it not? And then because you don't feel connected to it, you just don't have the motivation to do it. Whereas, again, someone who's overwhelmed, they're just exhausted, and that it is the amount that they just don't have, right, the agency or the energy to go into the workload that it takes to pursue that goal. Sometimes I just don't have enough energy, therefore I feel overwhelmed, versus I'm indifferent to the goal, so I don't know how to proceed. Saying it looks the same in the outcome, right, that somebody's floundering, but the internal part of it is really a lot different. So number five, I would look at that as, right, someone who's ambivalent is really torn between conflicting desires. And so they're finding it really challenging to commit fully to a goal because they have conflicting desires. I I want to do this, but I want to do that. I want to be this, I want to do that. Whereas someone who's overwhelmed by the goal, that they feel bombarded by the demands and the responsibilities, and that they don't want to be able to do the multiple tasks related to the goal because they're struggling. So when you look about that again, right, torn between conflicts and desires or conflicting desires, too many choices, right? Or I don't know where I commit, um, to I am bombarded by demands and responsibility. And when you see that in someone, you also see someone who can get really edgy. So if you're seeing someone who's doing goals with you and they're starting to feel edgy, I would ask, are you ambivalent? Are you having some, are they ambivalent or are they overwhelmed? Ambivalent would be sometimes just that they have a fluctuating amount of enthusiasm and commitment towards a goal, and self-doubt, right? Because there's something in here that's conflicting. Whereas overwhelm would be like, I am submerged by the amount of responsibility, and that's why I have a lack of motivation. So the motivation, if I'm ambivalent, looks different because I have fluctuating levels of enthusiasm. Overwhelmed is, look, I feel underwater over this, so I can't even move forward. Number 7, right? When we have internal conflict as ambivalent, that's the number one item, is that there's some sort of internal conflict. And that is oftentimes that we're torn between the pros and the cons. So, okay, great. That's very different in pursuing a goal than feeling overwhelmed, which is like completely drowned by the pressures and demands. And so that's hard to focus. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, right, that's a lot of parasympathetic. That's a very different part in your body. That's very different than just being ambivalent. So if I'm having an internal conflict, or am I feeling drowned under the pressure and the demands? So sometimes we feel very differently about a goal when we're doing it versus a goal when someone's giving it to us. And in prosperity mindset, we're looking at our own goals, and we're looking at why are you kind of running up into a roadblock. And that roadblock a lot of times is these two carriers, right? And that's what you see me ask. Are you ambivalent, right? Are you coming with apathy, right? Are you coming with ambivalence, or are you coming with the fact that you're overwhelmed? Sometimes when we look at the difference between them, the outcome is the same. That person's not moving forward. The question is, why are they not moving forward? Or why are you not moving forward? And a lot of times I find that people who are going through this priority change, which happens a lot in prosperity mindset, everybody's coming in, and the way that they're seeing the world is different, right? The right peace is within us at all times. So as we become more peaceful, we start to realize the other things that can really feel out of whack. And so the more peaceful we become, the more we recognize what isn't peaceful within us. And we see a lot of people hit that level of ambivalence because they've unwrapped a whole bunch of stuff that has a real, that lacks a sense of priority or importance. And so suddenly they start hesitating. They start hesitating and being very indecisive. Whereas somebody who gets to that point and they're overwhelmed, they're just overwhelmed because they feel helpless. And they feel like they can't see, they have an inability to make progress. So when you're thinking about priority and importance about the things that you're learning in prosperity mindset, ambivalence and overwhelm look a lot alike, but they really are different. So number 9 is, right, when somebody who is ambivalent in how they're setting their goals, especially in a prosperity mindset, is they have some uncertainty. Like, do I have the ability? Right. And that's the part of ambivalent is, I think, the hardest to identify is that a lot of high achievers don't want to really admit that. So they sort of avoid having that conversation with themselves of, gosh, I don't actually know if I can make better choices on this topic for the rest of my life. So we start to see this doubt and uncertainty when people start to question their ability to achieve a goal. Whereas someone who's overwhelmed, that they're just stretched. They don't, that they're just stretched too thin by the multiple aspects of the requirements of a goal. So if you're really feeling stretched on it and you are like, whoa, I can't even begin, that's overwhelm. Ambivalent is, I have some uncertainty, right? Whereas overwhelm is, I'm overloaded, I'm stretched thin, I can't even manage these aspects. Number 10 in the difference in those is, again, there's conflicting emotions. Ambivalence is confliction. It's confliction. And confliction makes it difficult to commit. And it makes it difficult to commit to the action steps that are necessary for a goal to be achieved. Whereas, so they are just kind of, you sort it out and they'll be good to go, right? Whereas someone who's overwhelmed, they just have this immense sense of pressure, this immense amount of stress, and it really just blocks the way for them to prioritize. that there's too much to do, right? They're just too much to do. So when you're thinking about the difference between these two, one, everyone's going to face these two on your journey. They're here. They're here. They're fun players. They're players for everybody. And sometimes it is just going, oh, okay, I don't know that either of these is easier to solve than the other. But what I do know is that they both start in the same place, which is somebody's stuck, that you're stuck, that we're stuck. I'm stuck, you're stuck, that there's stuckness involved. And the question that you want to ask yourself is this overwhelm? Am I just feeling pressure and stress that is hindering my ability to move forward? Or am I actually having conflicting emotions about why or how to move forward? And that's very different in approach. What is the starting point is this one, right? Which is to go, let me just think about it. Let me just look at what that is. And this is where I think a journal is helpful. That's why I like the top 10, because it really helps to identify what they are. I will put it in the comment section so that you, in the description section, so you can have it. But I like it for language. I like it for being able to kind of dig yourself out of it. They both require self-care in the parasympathetic. So what that means is that this is a great time to get a wide horizon in your thought process. So step outside, go for a walk, be somewhere that isn't clogged and congested, some open space. That both of those items really benefit from a little bit of open space. They also both really do well by identifying the why of the goal. Why is this goal important? Why is it not important? Overwhelm will be solved when you identify the other things that are the stressors. So what are the stressors about that? And why am I feeling so much stress on this? And sometimes I'm feeling stressed because it's one more thing to do. And all of these other things aren't in my control. A lot of times people are overwhelmed because of control, that they don't feel that they have control, or that they are in control, or that they can control, or that this feels like they're not able to do this task. Whereas ambivalence is, again, the conflict of what am I doing and why am I doing it? And it's that mixed feelings of uncertainty. And mixed feelings of uncertainty is, right, going back and re-identifying your wisdom on the topic. So if I'm feeling ambivalent, it's really to say, I have to do the work to understand my own wisdom on this matter. And it can be that it's actually bumping up against your values. It can be that it's bumping up against past trauma. That's fun. So it may be actually a triggering event that you're feeling that you have mixed emotions about. It can be that you don't actually want that outcome, because that outcome somewhere in your mind is wired that if you get this particular outcome, another thing is going to happen. And so we see this a lot in ambivalence around people who want to talk about, like, I have imposter syndrome, right? That's ambivalence in there. They have mixed feelings or uncertainty or conflicting thoughts and emotions. For those of you who think about, gosh, what would I have to do to be, have $1 million in the bank? That might just be overwhelming versus ambivalence, right? I might have mixed feelings about creating wealth, but I might actually be overwhelmed by the amount of unpaid bills that I have. So think about where you're going with this. And remember, they start in the same place. They look like the same thing, right? An inability to move forward, or the stucky stucks. Stuck. Nobody likes to be stuck. But what they both require is a chance for us to look in and ask some thoughtful questions. And this is where mindful isolation is great, right? Giving yourself some white space, looking out, right, with greater clarity, just taking a minute to understand your emotions attached to it. and then try to understand if this is the emotions of feelings that are feeling excessive and burdensome, or is this actually feelings that are complex or conflicting or undefined? And while both of them may have the element of, I don't feel I'm well enough to proceed, the ability to proceed is different for each one. So there it is. I will put this in the chat box. Definitely put in your stuff of like what you're thinking and feeling and doing on this subject, because I think it's important. And everyone is going through this. All of your other students are going through this. So whether or not you're viewing this on our Facebook page or you're using it on YouTube, put in what is your deal, because it is really helpful to everyone else. All right. Have a great day. I'm glad we had this time together, and I personally thank you. It is really, I mean, it's a mixed bag to do prosperity mindset, and it is one of the most fulfilling things you can do, but it's also messy work. This is messy work. So every drip and drab and pinch and sprinkle and glop that you can put into the positive things in your life, it's worth it. And I appreciate that about you. So thank you so much for being here, for doing the work, and for loving yourself, because that's where it starts. Have a great day.